Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California, who is leaving Congress at the end of this all. So thank you so much for joining us. You have sat through a great number of State of the Union addresses, some of them behind the president. What was your reaction to what you heard this evening?
Well, first let me say that I think that Governor Spanberger did a remarkable job just insisting on the truth, which is what we have to do when we're dealing with this president. I thought the speech was lazy. It's one thing to acknowledge patriotism and people getting well and everything when you have absolutely nothing to do with their courage or the rest, but you spend an hour and a half doing it. What is the state of the nation? Okay, so I had a few things to what I was going to call her by her first name, but what the governor said.
Spanberger,
I thought she just really hit it out of the park. But here's the thing. He started off with BBB, his big, beautiful bill, which is, of course, disgusting and ugly. He talks about protecting Medicare. He took $500 billion out of, $500 billion out of Medicare in his BBB, and $1 trillion out of Medicaid, which is a health benefit for many seniors in our country as well. What was sad for me was to see when he talked about how many people he took off of SNAP food program for children and the rest, that the Republicans just stood up and cheered, we're not feeding the kids, how about that, that's great. And all of that to give a tax cut to the richest people in America. Food out of the mouths of babies, people off health, millions of people off of Medicaid to give it to them. Okay, then he goes on to some foreign policy, after drifting and all the rest, some foreign policy. Did he spend a sentence and a half on Ukraine, where democracy is at stake, where American people want us to be there on the side of democracy?
And it's the 4-year anniversary of the invasion today.
Today is the 4-year anniversary. You think he would have risen to the occasion. But his occasion, as I said in that picture in the cabinet room, when pointing to him that day, I said, with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. If I were president, it would never have happened. Well, you are president. You can stop it.
Madam Speaker, so much of, obviously, number one thing that people take away from watching the State of the Union is the president. But people are also watching for the reaction of the opposition party. And your leadership warned the caucus not to have any outbursts, not to take the bait. There was a moment where a couple of members did not, more than one moment, but I wanted to play one of them for you when a couple did not heed that. Just watch.
And enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens, in many cases drug lords, murderers all over our country. They're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
That was hardly noticeable in the room. It may have been more noticeable on TV. Hardly noticeable. And then also when he started talking about corruption, the members were saying, what about you? What about you? What about you? That was another, more of an outburst than that, actually. I don't think that there was that much, shall we say, departure from what the leader had guided us to do. Don't come if you don't want to come, but if you come, we don't want to give him a moment. And I don't think they gave him a moment.
There was one moment, Madam Speaker, where he called you out specifically around, of course, congressional stock trading. What do you say back to him?
I say back to him, as that's what members said, look at your own self. The inference he wants to draw is there was something wrong with that, which there wasn't. And if there was, people get prosecuted for it. For a long time now, we've been trying to pass this law. It doesn't have, now it has more support than it had before. And
Elizabeth Warren stood up and applauded. Elizabeth Warren stood and applauded tonight when the president talked about it.
Well, we all did. I did too. He said, did Nancy stand up? Yeah, I did too. A lot of people stood up. A lot of Democrats stood up. I think that will pass, depending on what the bill is. I mean, what we had, we thought we could pass. It was actually a tougher bill than Governor Spanberger had put forth. We thought it could pass, but it was clear that it wasn't going to make it to the House and the Senate. But in any event, he gives his shout out. pay any attention to him. What I'm concerned about is our democracy, which he is destroying, even in the 250th year anniversary. But we saved the democracy at the kitchen table to talk about how we help working families with their costs, taking down the cost, not by giving tax breaks to the wealthiest people in the country, by making health care more expensive for them. And then he talks about drugs in America. While he freed Hernandez, a guy who sent 400 tons of cocaine into the United States and said he was going to jam it up the throats of the noses of the gringos. He freed him. He had been convicted in a U.S. court. He freed him. It's about follow the money when it comes to him. But let's just be calm. I believe in the goodness of the American people. I think Governor Spanberger's response, I don't know if it's a response, I think it was something more positive than that, really talked about what our responsibilities are. And we believe in the goodness of the American people, that when they are presented with the truth, what the opportunities are, what the difference is, that they will come around to that. And hopefully we can do that in a bipartisan way.
And Speaker Pelosi, I noticed you're wearing something that a lot of your Democratic colleagues are wearing, which is this white button that says release the files.
Yes, release the files.
The president's speech was record long, but it did actually not, he didn't make any mention of Jeffrey Epstein during that speech, despite the fact that there were some survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's in the chamber.
Many were.
What did you make of that moment?
Well, it was, again, I don't even know if that was State of the Nation speech. It's in the Constitution that the president shall send a statement of the State of the Nation. It can only be it can be in a manila envelope. It doesn't have to be a speech, but it's become a speech. But he ignored the State of the Nation, and the State of the Nation is about our integrity as well. Freedom of the press, independence of the judiciary, rule of law, all of that, separation of power. Forget it with him. And so the fact that he knows this is a vulnerability, and we've had lots of conversations with the survivors and with other people who have been survivors in the community. And that's why the American people are so insistent that this thing has continued. But the fact that he didn't mention it shows his vulnerability, his exposure in all of this.
Madam Speaker, before you go, this is your last State of the Union address as a member of Congress. I have covered a number of ones that you were the Speaker for, and I wanted to show you a couple moments that stick in our minds from your being House Speaker during a State of the Union address. Take a look.
And tonight I have the high privilege and distinct honor of my own as the first president to begin the State of the Union message with these words: Madam Speaker.
So those moments, I mean, that when I think about you presiding as Speaker, those are actually the two moments. That moment of real grace from President Bush, and that, shall we say, tense moment between you and President Trump. And I do think it also shows the degradation of politics in America in a way.
Well, the thing is that I didn't tear up his speech because we didn't shake hands. I tore up his speech because it was a manifesto of lies, as this speech was tonight. So he's consistent with what he's doing. But the Speaker did not choose to tear up his speech. Let me just say one more thing, though, on Iran, because this is very important. We all agree that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. President Obama masterfully, with great virtuosity, had a diplomatic solution to how we would have a nuclear agreement with Iran. He turned that around, he rejected that, cast it aside, and now is using threat of military and the rest. It's so ridiculous. It's so inept. It's so below the quality of leadership that our country is used to 250 years. So in any event, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Oh, it's so great to have you. Please don't be a stranger, but you're still in Congress for another year, so, you know.
Yeah, I'm still here for another
So, you know,
CNN. Lovely to see you all. Freedom of the press, you are the defenders of our democracy. Transparency, accountability, roads all spring from you. So thank you for your leadership.
We're trying.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Good to see you.